Do you like the winter plumage? The other day, I made a video. I was out and about and I was thinking about some of the uncertainties and anxieties around this channel, whether I'm doing actually the right thing. And I kind of put a request out to people in this video is to say, don't critique the channel from top to bottom, but just what tweaks do you think I could make that would be make it a little bit more maybe interesting? And one or two people, firstly, people left some really lovely comments, and I'm really appreciative of those. And anybody who takes the time to watch my videos, because some of them are so long, I'm just thrilled that people take the time. It's just great. But a couple of suggestions that popped up that were particularly doable in the short term were one, to yet another reminder to get on with my Americana kind of favorite albums, which I'll definitely get onto, and I've been making a list of those in the last couple of days, but also to kind of show the listening room and the equipment, the hi-fi equipment that I listen on, because people are interested in that sort of stuff. And to be fair, I like other people's room tours, as they're called. So I'm going to try and do one of those today. Talk to you a little bit about how the records are organized, what else is in the room, and the hi-fi, how I listen, and the hi-fi equipment itself, and some of the preceding bits of kit that made way for this better kit. So let's start. I'll give you kind of a panoramic view of the room. So I'm sitting in the hot seat. I'm sitting in the listening chair right now, and there's only one listening chair in this room, so it's not a social experience listening to music with me unless you want to sit on the floor or force me to sit on the floor. So anyway, so this is the panoramic view. So here we go. So I can't really quite see so much, but basically I'm going around from my left all the way around. You can see my glorious view there. I have to say, it's a beautiful bright day today, but to be honest with you, the light in here is normally rank because it doesn't face south. So I've had all sorts of difficulty trying to get the right sort of stuff, right sort of lighting. Starting to get there, I think. Right, so where shall I start? Let's start with the cleaning kit. So come with me. The cleaning kit. So I've got two record cleaning machines. Let's see if I can put this on. I've got a stool here. Hopefully you'll be able to see that. I've got two record cleaning machines. Oh, it's an ECM CD. My vacuum record cleaning machine, which is from a company called Moth. I think there's a bit of dust on the lens there. Bear with me. There you go. Moth. Very effective, very loud. So occasionally I'll wear ear defenders if I'm doing more than one record. It's a bit of a pain in the ass, but I will do it from time to time. And here is the Humming Guru. Is that the Mark 1? But that's an ultrasonic cleaning machine, which if I've got a particularly grubby record, I'll use this first, and then I may put it through the Humming Guru, and to help dry it off, I may put it back on the vacuum thing here. But to be honest with you, I don't vacuum clean or don't clean new records. But I tend to only play clean records. So if I cleaned a record 3 years ago and I open it up and it's still clean, I'll play it without putting through these machines. Because I think basically what happens is that if the record isn't clean, I think there's a risk of some damage to the stylus, and I prefer to expose my cartridge and stylus only to clean records. So that's the cleaning system. Right, follow me. And you're probably thinking, what is that? Let me tell you. Let's see if I can get this so I can talk to it. Bear with me. Right, so That is a meditation stool. And you're thinking, what the hell, a meditation stool? Why? And does he meditate? Is he some sort of a weirdo? Well, the truth is, about 20 years ago, through the advice of a friend, I went on a meditation course and I did some meditation. And for a year or two, I did, it's a bit like my journaling, short spurts and then nothing for years. So I meditated for a while and I learned something really important. And that important thing was about being able to, if you know anything about meditation, it's all about kind of clearing the mind of distractions. And believe it or not, that's influenced how I now listen to music in this room. And so I don't meditate now, got nowhere else in the house for the stool, but it's a kind of a reminder of what King Crimson's Robert Fripp said not too long ago, maybe 10 years ago, although I think this has been a theme of his for quite a long time. He talked about trying to remove all distractions when you're listening to music, specifically him and the band on stage. No phones, no iPads. In a situation like this, no reading material. You just open up your mind and listen to the music afresh. And I have to say, it's remarkable. And King Crimson as a band, just as one band, and this applies to jazz as well, it's opened up my mind to being able to listen to music with so much more concentration than I used to do when I was doing household chores or reading the paper or even having the television on with the music turned up and so on, watching, say, a football match. I'm in the habit of giving as much, full concentration is impossible, giving as much concentration, almost like into a meditative state, to just let the music wash over me. And that ability to concentrate, I think, allows me to get more out of the music. So that's kind of and of course I don't do it every day because that's quite demanding. It's almost like listening to music as a form of ritual. So anyway, that's what it is. That's kind of what I try and do, and I seem to get more satisfaction. So what have we got in terms of music in here? Let me just drop this tripod down a little bit and just give you an idea of what's going on. It runs from A to Z, all the way around. So I'm not going to go through all of them, but you've got ABBA, Ryan Adams, Allman Brothers, Arcade Fire, Richard Ashcroft there, Costello's down the bottom, Deep Purple, The Cure's down the bottom, Dire Straits, Beach Boys, The Beatles, Joan Baez, Captain Beefheart, Chuck Berry, Big Big Train, Bowie, whole section there or two on Dylan. Well, you get the gist. I'm not going to go through them all. So anyway, all the rock, pop and everything kind of goes all the way around down here and back here. And then this little alcove, this little section that I've created here, it continues around here. And then behind some of these piles here, we've actually got classical music, soundtracks up to here. And then the bulk of my jazz collection, which runs from here. Let me just move that here, all the way along the bottom there as well. And one of these days I'm going to get on to talking about one of my favourite jazz albums and why. That's me on the bike, doing a sportif, about 70 odd miles in the Cotswolds. But then it continues around here, and you've got Prince, Radiohead, John Prine, you've got Stones, Lou Reed, Rush, Roxy Music, Simple Minds, Frank Sinatra, Springsteen, of course, Stingo, which you see in the background of most of my videos, 10cc, Tangerine Dream, Van der Graaf Generator, Tom Waits, Neil Young, Yes, Roger Waters, Paul Weller, Lucinda Williams, The Who, Zappa, and so on. So that's the way it goes. So that's basically the records that are in here. Oh, there's something else that's worth pointing out. Behind these sound panels, these are sound panels, one behind me and two here. And I'll talk about those a bit. There are more box sets, and I'll put up a picture of some box sets. But there's a couple of box sets that are worth looking at here. Here, I don't know whether you can see, but you've got the Pink Floyd early years, but you've also got the tour boxes from King Crimson from 2014 through to 2021. And they're absolutely fantastic if you are curious about King Crimson, because they do extracts from the albums. They have isolated instruments and vocals and so on. It's really interesting, and they kind of all flow into each other, so they're great. Herbert von Karajan box set, Toscanini, John Lennon, Bob Dylan. So that's on here, and CDs over here. You got a whole bunch of CDs here, soundtracks all the way here down to about here, and the jazz CD collection goes all the way along down and around behind me. That's a picture of my mum and dad at their wedding day. And of course, God's Country, Newcastle upon Tyne, back in the day. That's an old, to be repaired CD player by Consonance. It's got a bit of a problem on one channel. So that's kind of what we got in terms of other music, I think. Oh, there's a bunch of ECM CDs here, classical boxes, some more box sets here. Springsteen, REM, bootlegs, The Wall, Weather Report, Hendrix, Free, The Police, and Springsteen, and so on. So that's my listening space. Now, the whole idea, as I say, to try and listen to music in the way that I want to, in that concentrated fashion, I have to try and trick my mind to believe, trick my brain into believing I'm in a performance space with the artist. So getting the positioning right of this chair, the speakers, has been very, very important. And part of the aesthetic of the room, but also something that helps trick my brain, is these sound panels. Now, these sound panels, I don't really know whether they do much at all in terms of absorption. This room, I haven't measured it up, but you can get a sense of it. It's in the roof space. All the way around there are shelving, and you've got some the records perform a diffusion function. So you don't get a lot of echo in this room, which is good. But these are aesthetically, they hide some of the detritus that are behind here. So the other box sets, some more books, but also old photo albums that I kind of refer to when I'm doing my life and music videos, where I kind of go through each year and say, oh, what was I doing that particular year? And then surprise, surprise, certain people or certain things pop up. So I keep those behind there as well. So I'm sitting in the sweet spot here between two speakers, and the speakers, well, let's come back to the speakers. Let's go at the source first. So I've got two sources in here. I have to say I've got an iPod in the corner that's not wired up at the minute. But the first one is a CD player from Marantz. And this is not old. This is the CD 608 or 606 or something, 6006. Anyway, it's a good CD player. Does the job really well. You can plug a USB flash drive in there. That's really good. And the turntable. Now, my story of turntables, let me see if I can get this up on here so you can kind of see the turntable. Let me just put this down here so maybe you'll get a decent view with that. Right, so turntables. As I've said in a previous video, my first turntable for hi-fi separates was a dual CS505, 505-2 maybe, or a 505-1, I can't quite remember. I still have it. It's in a state of disrepair, needs new belt and so on. Might never be used in anger again. But then at some point around about 1990, I bought a Riga 3. Not the very early Riga 3, but certainly a lot earlier than they are now. Still a very popular deck. And I was happy with that deck for about 5, 6 years, maybe 7 years. And then what happened? I saw an advert on eBay about upgrading your Riga 3 turntable, and I took that turntable to a company called SRM Tech in Cambridgeshire in England. And the idea there was that they would retrofit a vibration reduction kit, and instead of a glass platter, an acrylic platter. Anyway, I paid a couple of £100, got this thing upgraded, and I was like, wow, what a difference it made. So I started looking at turntables, and I decided I was going to look for an old Lin LP12, cheap one, and take it to the same guy and put the Lin upgrade on that turntable. And I did, and he did, and it was brilliant. And then I bought another LP12 because I thought, well, now I know that this thing works, I'm going to buy a more modern version of that. And apart from the Riga 3, which I've mentioned, and the original Dual CS505, all of my turntables have been bought secondhand off eBay. In fact, almost all this kit is secondhand, including the speakers. And anyway, these LP12s were great. I was so musical, it was just lovely. They look nice, but they are almost subject to non-stop tweaking, let me put it that way. So people tweak them all the time. And I'm sitting there listening to music, and I'm not listening to the music, I'm listening to the hi-fi and thinking, what tweak am I missing? And so I got it into my head as I'm done with LP12s, and then I'm back on eBay, and I ended up with a couple of Clear Audio turntables, one of which is this one, which is the Clear Audio Champion 2, with a very well-renowned arm, which is the SME 5, which is an awesome arm. Now for me, the benefit of all of that was that the music was seemed to be much more stable. The bass, the depth of the whole sound was just stronger, tighter grip on the bass, and I thought, wow, this, it really matters. It really matters. So I bought that. And then what I did, I got into amplification. What can I do to upgrade what was a Cyrus kit at the time? And so I ended up with a valve or a tube amplifier that I bought, a Chinese one, and I bought that secondhand as well. And then what happened is I put it through some B&W 805S speakers, which I still have, which are what's called low sensitivity speakers. These ones here are high sensitivity. Back to that in a second. And what they did, it burnt out the amp. It just overloaded the amp and it burnt out. But I was hooked on that valve sound. Now, I can't really describe the sound except feeling that it was more responsive and dynamic and felt more open. But I'm not a hi-fi critic, so I haven't got the phraseology to actually give you a good description of what it is, but I thought it's really good. And then I came across this amp, which is the EAR V20, and this has 20 tubes or 20 valves in here, all of which are generally low cost. But the design of it is by a guy called Tim de Pavaricini. Now, Tim de Pavaricini is a very famous designer, or was a very famous designer, and he worked at Abbey Road, and he worked on the recording equipment that was there when Floyd recorded Dark Side of the Moon. Very famous designer. And then this started to develop a hum, and I went across to the factory again in Cambridgeshire, and Tim himself oversaw the servicing of this amplifier, and I was chatting to him outside for half an hour about all these stories of rubbing shoulders with the rich and famous back in the day. So it's a beautiful sounding amplifier. Looks weird. It's an acquired taste, I suppose. But it's really, really nice. And fantastic for acoustic music, fantastic for classical music, soundtrack music. It's not so good with rock. And so what I did about 2 years ago, I bought this equalizer, the Lokius, from Shit in America. And that allows me to beef up the bass and the treble or whatever I want to, whatever else I want to do, whenever I feel like I need to do that for certain albums. And I remember when I was buying an LP12, I went to see the seller, and he had 30 odd different turntables in his house and this hi-fi setup, and he demonstrated this. Wasn't a valve setup, but it was a Krell power amplifier, audio research preamplifier, and these great big Kef speakers. And he played Rush's The Trees. Now, if you know The Trees, Rush not my favourite band, but The Trees is pretty great. It's got some great crescendos, and it absolutely blew me away. So this hi-fi setup is great, but it's not the best I've heard. But it is what it is, because what I understand is that there's, as much of the sound you get from your hi-fi is the shape of your room and what treatments you've got, whether you've got hard floors, soft floors, bare walls, and all that sort of business. So you can only get so much out of your hi-fi itself. Anyway, finally, onto the speakers. I learned that what goes very well with valve amplification or tube amplification is high sensitivity speakers. So I bought these Zoo Druids, again on eBay, but they're immaculate. They sound absolutely fantastic. So the music sounds really alive in here. The only problem is the view ain't great. I'd love to be able to have a great big picture window looking out over the sea, but sadly I've got to look onto next door's roof. But it's not bad. It works quite well. I don't think I'm going to spend any more money on hi-fi. I don't think I need anything else. And one of the things that I would say is that even though I've talked about the hi-fi kit, and there's a phono stage there, another EAR 834P, which is this one. Let me just show you that. And then there's the thinker there, and that's to remind me to think and not listen to the Times or the BBC for the truth, because there's no guarantee. Well, you're not thinking hard enough if you rely on those sources. It's just a reminder, but actually its dual purpose is that it hides some cables as well, so there's a kind of an aesthetic reason for it as well. But despite all this stuff the money I've spent on hi-fi, the truth is that it's my understanding is when bands do recordings, they do test runs through monitor speakers, and they're trying to get the right sound sounds good on good hi-fi equipment, but also on across the radio and everything else. And the truth is, the essence of what the artist wants us to hear is present and can be heard on a very modest system. So you don't need all this paraphernalia here. It just, if you want to give that full concentration, you want to hear every little micro rhythm, or you want to kind of get a better sense of the room it was recorded in, this definitely helps, but it's not essential. So that's my listening room, and I've got bits of hi-fi around the house, so I don't do this full concentration business all the time. There's music in most rooms in the house, and most of my CDs and a whole bunch of more vinyls elsewhere as well. But so I listen very casually as well when the mood takes me. But this is my listening room, not hearing room. It's my listening room. So I hope that was interesting. Thanks for those of you who suggested I should do this. It's been overdue. Let me know if you've got any questions or comments. I'd be very happy to respond. So in the meantime, I will see you later. Ta-ra!